I still remember the first time I held my grandson. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I thought life had finally given me a reason to smile again. My wife, Martha, had passed away only a year before, and that little boy's laugh became the only light in my home. My son Ryan and his wife, Clara, used to visit every Sunday. Clara always had that polished smile, polite, but never warm. I didn't mind. I just wanted to see the kids. But things started to change after Ryan got a promotion. Clara began to act like I was beneath her, an old man who didn't belong in their modern life. One afternoon, when I stopped by unannounced with gifts for the grandkids, she stood in the doorway and said, "Edward, you can't just show up here whenever you want." She didn't even open the door fully. That was the day I realized I was no longer part of their family, only a reminder of what she wanted Ryan to forget. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your story too. After that day, everything changed. The weekly visits stopped. Ryan's calls grew shorter, always ending with, "Dad, Clara's calling me, I'll ring you back." He rarely did. Birthdays came and went without invitations. I sent gifts through the mail, but they were never acknowledged. My house became quieter with each passing month. Sometimes I'd walk past the playground near my street, hoping to catch a glimpse of my grandkids. I never did. One winter night, I tried calling again. Clara answered. "Ryan's busy," she said curtly. "I just wanted to speak to the kids. They're sleeping." "Don't make this a habit, Edward. You need to respect boundaries." The line went dead. I sat there, phone still in hand, realizing my son had chosen silence over love. The pain didn't come all at once. It sank in slowly, like frost creeping under the door. I missed my family. But more than that, I missed the feeling of being needed. 3 years passed before I saw Ryan again. He came alone, nervous, twisting his wedding ring. "Dad, Clara thinks it's best if we keep some space," he said. I looked at him carefully. "And what do you think, son?" He couldn't meet my eyes. We talked for less than 10 minutes before he left. That night, I sat by Martha's old photo and whispered, "You'd know what to say." But something shifted inside me. Instead of waiting for their approval, I started fixing up the house, painting, repairing the porch, planting flowers Martha once loved. A few months later, I received a letter from a lawyer. My late brother had passed, leaving me a small countryside property. It was old and quiet, but I saw potential, a place to start over. So I packed my things and drove out there, leaving the city behind. As I turned off the main road and saw the house bathed in sunlight, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. The countryside air felt clean, honest. The old cottage needed work, broken fences, leaky roof, but I threw myself into it. Every nail I hammered felt like healing. I named the place Martha's Rest. I planted her favorite flowers, daisies, by the porch and built a swing for when the grandkids might one day visit. Hope never fully dies, no matter how many times it's ignored. I met my neighbors, kind folks who invited me to church and Sunday dinners. It reminded me that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's who welcomes you when you have nothing left. Months rolled by. I stopped checking my phone for messages from Ryan. The silence hurt less. Then one day, as I painted the fence, a black SUV pulled up the drive. The window rolled down, and Clara's voice called out, sweet as honey but sharp underneath. "Edward, long time no see," she said. I froze. For a moment I thought I was dreaming. But no, there she was, perfectly dressed, standing in my driveway like she owned the place. Clara stepped out of the car with her usual smile, the one that never reached her eyes. "Ryan told me about this place," she said, glancing around. "It's rustic." I wiped my hands on my jeans. "What brings you out here?" She hesitated, then said, "We're thinking of moving. Somewhere peaceful, away from the city." I could tell something was off. Her tone was forced, her eyes scanning the property like a shopper judging a product. "Well," I said carefully, "this land isn't for sale." "Oh, I wasn't asking," she replied quickly. "I just wanted to see how you were doing. The kids miss you." That line almost broke me. The kids miss you. I wanted to believe it. But then she asked, Do you have a copy of the deed? I could help with some renovations, make this place more livable. That's when I knew. She wasn't here for me. She was here for what she thought she could take. I smiled politely and said, I'm doing just fine, Clara. You don't need to worry about me. Clara left soon after, but her visit haunted me. But after years of silence? The next week, I got my answer. My neighbor handed me a local newspaper. The front page headline read, Tech firm CEO accused of fraud, assets frozen. Ryan's company. I read the article twice. My son's career was in ruins. Suddenly, Clara's surprise visit made sense. She was looking for a lifeline. Days later, I got a call from Ryan. His voice was trembling. I messed up. Can I come see you? When he arrived, he looked thinner, older. I didn't say much. I just opened the door. He sat on the couch and stared at the floor. Clara's angry, he whispered. We lost almost everything. I wanted to comfort him, but part of me remembered all those unanswered calls. Still, he was my son. I brewed some tea, sat beside him, and said quietly, You'll always have a place here, Ryan. He nodded, tears in his eyes. Ryan stayed for a few days, helping me around the cottage. It felt almost normal again, like old times. But Clara never called or visited. One evening, as we sat on the porch, he sighed. She blames me for everything. She says I should have listened to her. About what? I asked. She told me to cut ties with you, said it'd make me look stronger, more independent. My stomach twisted. All those years of silence, all her doing. Ryan looked at me, shame in his eyes. I'm sorry, Dad. I should have fought harder. I nodded slowly. You can't change the past, son. But you can choose who you are now. That night, I heard him talking on the phone outside. Clara, please, he said. The kids want to see Grandpa. Can't we visit? I didn't hear her response, but the pain on his face said enough. It was clear. Clara still thought she controlled everything. She had no idea how wrong she was. Weeks later, Clara arrived, this time without makeup, her eyes red from crying. The kids were in the back seat, silent. Ryan stepped out first. Dad, we need a place to stay. Just for a while. I looked at them, then at the old house behind me. Part of me wanted to say no, to remind her how she'd treated me. But then I saw my grandkids. Their faces lit up when they spotted me. Grandpa, they shouted, running into my arms. I felt my heart melt. Whatever Clara had done, the children didn't deserve to suffer. I nodded. You can stay. But only if everyone here shows respect. My eyes met Clara's. She lowered her gaze. Of course, she murmured. That evening, I made soup while they unpacked. The house felt alive again. But deep down, I knew this peace wouldn't last. People like Clara don't change overnight, especially when they think they're still in control. For the first few days, Clara acted polite, too polite. She offered to cook, cleaned dishes, even laughed at my old jokes. But I could feel the tension under her smile. At dinner, she said, Edward, this place could be worth a lot if it's renovated. You ever think about selling? I kept my voice calm. This house isn't for sale. It's family. She smiled thinly. Of course, just thinking about your future. Later that night, I caught her in the study, flipping through papers on my desk. When she noticed me, she jumped. Oh, I was just looking for a pen, she said quickly. I said nothing. I simply gathered the papers, the deed among them, and locked them away. That was when I realized she hadn't come here to rebuild anything. She'd come to take what little piece I had left. But this time, I wasn't the same old man she'd once controlled. A week passed before Clara showed her true colors again. She started rearranging things, my old photo frames, Martha's teacups, even the cross above the fireplace. Just making the place more modern, she said. Ryan noticed too, but he stayed quiet. He was a man trying to keep peace in a house full of tension. The kids, innocent as always, ran around laughing, unaware of the quiet war brewing between their mother and me. One evening, I overheard Clara whispering on the phone. Yes, the deed's here, she said softly. Once he signs it over, we can start fresh. My heart pounded. She hadn't changed, not one bit. I decided to play along. I started pretending to be weaker, slower, more forgetful. If she thought I was easy to trick, she'd show her hand sooner. Because this time, I wasn't just protecting my home, I was protecting my family's soul. That weekend, I invited a lawyer friend, Mr. Harris, to visit. Clara looked uneasy the moment he arrived. "Just some estate planning," I said casually. While we discussed documents, Clara hovered nearby, pretending to tidy. She couldn't hide her curiosity. After he left, she asked, "So, are you changing your will?" I smiled. "Maybe. I want to make sure the right people inherit Martha's rest." Her eyes flickered with greed. "That's smart," she said. "You should think about people who can really take care of it, like Ryan and me." I nodded, hiding my amusement. "Of course, I'll think about it." That night, I wrote a letter and sealed it with my late wife's ring pressed into wax. It wasn't a will, not yet. It was a reminder to myself, don't let kindness blind you again. I placed it in my drawer beside the real papers. Locked, safe, untouchable. Ryan tried to keep the peace, but it was clear he was breaking inside. "She blames me for everything," he said one night while we fixed the fence. "Says I failed her." "You didn't fail, Ryan. You trusted the wrong person," I replied. He nodded slowly. "I wish Mom were here." "So do I whispered. But I could see him changing, small steps. He helped the kids with chores, spent evenings reading with them. Away from the city and Clara's control, he looked freer. One morning, I caught him smiling while watching the kids chase butterflies. It reminded me of when he was young. But the peace shattered that evening when Clara stormed out of the cottage, waving her phone. "They rejected our appeal," she screamed. "The house in the city is gone, everything. All because of you." Ryan just stared at her. "Clara, this isn't about Dad. This is about choices you made." She glared at both of us, her pride cracking like glass. That was the first time she lost control, but not the last. Days later, Clara's mask finally slipped. At dinner, she slammed her fork down. "You think you're better than me, don't you, Edward? Sitting here in your dusty cottage, pretending to be wise." I kept calm. "No one's pretending anything." "You've turned Ryan against me," she snapped. Ryan tried to speak, but she cut him off. "You think your father cares about you? He's using you to feel important." Her words hit hard, but not for me, for Ryan. I saw the pain in his eyes. I stood. "That's enough, Clara. You're under my roof. Show some respect." She laughed bitterly. "Respect? You're a lonely old man clinging to what's left of his pride." The kids started crying. Ryan led them to their room, and I turned back to her. "Clara," I said quietly, "I hope one day you realize, control isn't love." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the lights flickered. It was the last dinner we ever shared under the same roof. Clara left that night, taking the car and some jewelry. Ryan was devastated, but I told him gently, "Let her go. Sometimes losing control is the only way people learn." Weeks passed. Ryan worked odd jobs around town, determined to rebuild. The kids adjusted. They laughed again, played again. The house felt like home. One afternoon, I got a call from the local bank. "Mr. Edwards," the manager said, "your daughter-in-law tried accessing your property records. We thought you should know." I thanked them, hung up and smiled. Clara was still trying to play her old game. But she didn't know, I'd already transferred ownership of Martha's Rest to a family trust, under the Grandkids' names. No one could touch it now, not even Ryan without my consent. For the first time in years, I felt like Martha would have been proud. Justice wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet, written in ink and sealed by love. Months went by without a word from Clara. Then, one rainy night, a knock echoed at the door. When I opened it, she was standing there, soaked, trembling, holding a bag. "Please," she whispered. "I have nowhere to go." I stared at her for a long moment. The same woman who once told me I wasn't good enough for her family was now begging for shelter. I stepped aside. "You can stay, for the kids' sake." She nodded, eyes full of humiliation. That night, as she sat silently by the fire, I couldn't help but feel a mix of pity and poetic justice. Life had a way of teaching lessons no one else could. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. I was wrong. About everything. I didn't answer. Some apologies need to sit in silence before they mean anything. Clara tried to be humble. She helped with chores, cooked meals, even read bedtime stories. But I could tell, she was still struggling with pride. One morning I found her outside, crying by the garden. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered. You're a mother, I said softly. Start from there. She looked at me, confused. After everything I did to you, why are you helping me? I sighed. Because holding on to anger only keeps you trapped. Martha used to say forgiveness is the strongest kind of revenge. She nodded slowly, eyes wet. That was the first time she smiled, not out of pride, but relief. I didn't forgive her completely that day, but something inside me shifted. For the first time, I saw her not as an enemy, but as a broken person who finally realized she wasn't in control anymore. Sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find yourself. Weeks turned into months. Ryan found steady work, the kids thrived in school, and Clara changed, truly changed. She no longer talked about money or status. She started baking for the neighbors, volunteering at church, and even joined me for morning prayers. One Sunday, after service, she approached me quietly. Edward, I wanted to thank you for not turning me away. I smiled faintly. You did that yourself. She laughed, a little embarrassed. Later that evening, Ryan gathered us around the table. Dad, he said, we want to stay here, make this our permanent home, if that's okay. My chest tightened. For years, I'd prayed for this. Not revenge, not wealth, but unity. As the kids ran around the yard, Clara looked at me and said softly, you were right all along. Control isn't love. I nodded. And love isn't control. It's letting people grow, even when it hurts. For the first time, peace truly filled Martha's rest. Peace has a strange sound. It's not silence, but gentle laughter echoing through old walls. For the first time in years, that's what filled Martha's rest. One morning, I found Clara sitting on the porch with the kids, teaching them how to plant flowers. She looked different, softer. No makeup, no mask, no bitterness in her eyes. When she saw me, she smiled. I never understood what this place meant to you until now. It's not the land, I said. It's what we build on it. The kids laughed as the wind carried Martha's old wind chime tune across the yard. For a moment, I felt her there, watching over us. Still, I knew the story wasn't over. Karma doesn't only punish, it teaches. And sometimes, the final lesson comes when you think everything's calm. That lesson arrived sooner than I expected. A letter came in the mail, a legal notice addressed to Clara. Her creditors were demanding repayment. If she didn't settle, she could lose everything she still had left in her name. She sat trembling at the kitchen table. I can't do this, Edward. I have nothing. I looked at her and said gently, you still have your family. That's worth more than anything money can buy. Tears streamed down her face. I don't deserve it. No, I said quietly, but you can earn it. Ryan placed his hand on hers. We'll start over together. Watching them, I realized my revenge had never been about payback. It was about restoring what pride had destroyed. And seeing them rebuild, I knew the true inheritance was already being passed down. Months passed, and the seasons changed. The garden bloomed brighter than ever. The kids grew stronger, and laughter filled every corner of the house. One evening, we held a small dinner, just family. No guests, no show. Clara cooked her mother's stew, and Ryan played old songs on the guitar. Halfway through the meal, Clara raised her glass. To forgiveness, she said, and to the man who never stopped believing in family, even when we didn't deserve it. I smiled, humbled. To second chances, I replied. As we clinked glasses, I saw the flicker of something I hadn't seen in years, real peace. That night as I sat by the window, I thought about how far we'd come. From slammed doors to open hearts. From greed to grace. And I realized, revenge wasn't the ending. It was the bridge to redemption. One Sunday, I took the kids into town to buy ice cream. While we walked, I overheard a couple whisper, "That's Edward, the man who lost everything and got it all back." I smiled to myself. People love stories of downfall and revenge. But what they don't see is the quiet rebuilding after. When we got home, Clara greeted us with cookies she'd baked. "Welcome home," she said softly, words that once stung but now healed. Later that night, Ryan came into my study. "Dad," he said, "thank you for not giving up on me. I know I let you down." I placed my hand on his shoulder. "You were lost, not gone. I just had to wait for you to find your way back." He smiled through tears. "You did more than wait. You taught me what family really means." That winter, I fell ill for a while. Nothing serious, but enough to slow me down. Clara cared for me like a daughter would. Soup, medicine, late-night talks by the fire. One evening, she said, "You know, I used to think control kept people safe. But it only made me lonely." I nodded. "It takes courage to admit that." She smiled faintly. Maybe that's what Martha meant when she said love has to breathe. Her words warmed me more than the blanket. The next morning, the kids brought me flowers they'd grown themselves, bright yellow marigolds. "For Grandma and for you," they said. I placed them beside Martha's photo. For the first time in years, the house felt whole again. Spring came, and with it, renewal. Clara had found part-time work at the school library. Ryan was fixing the old barn to turn it into a workshop. One evening, while sorting old boxes, I found the letter I'd written years ago, the one I never sent to Ryan. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were my words of anger, love, and heartbreak. Everything I'd bottled up. Ryan walked in just then. I handed it to him. "You should read this." He read silently, eyes glistening. When he finished, he hugged me tightly. "I wish I'd listened sooner." I smiled. "You did, eventually. That's what matters." Clara stood in the doorway, watching us with tears in her eyes. That was the moment I knew the wounds had finally healed. One sunny morning, we visited Martha's grave together. The kids brought daisies and sang the hymn she used to hum while cooking. I knelt down, brushing the dust from her name. "You see, Martha? They came home." The wind rustled through the trees like a soft reply. Clara placed her hand on my shoulder. "Thank you for keeping this family together." I looked up at her, smiling gently. "You helped too, by learning what love really means." We stood there in silence, not out of sorrow, but gratitude. Sometimes, life breaks you so you can be rebuilt stronger. That day, standing before my wife's resting place, I finally understood, forgiveness isn't about letting others off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from their shadow. Years later, I sit on the porch watching my grandchildren play under the same oak tree where Ryan once did. The sun dips low, painting the sky gold. Clara sits beside me, knitting quietly. "You ever regret not fighting harder back then?" she asks. I chuckle softly. "No. Some doors must close so better ones can open." She nods. "You were right all along, Edward. The sweetest revenge really is peace." As the kids run up to hug me, I whisper, "Come here, my loves. This house, this family, will always be yours." The camera would fade out here, if this were a movie. The wind chime sings. The sun sets. And Martha's rest glows in the soft evening light, not a place of revenge anymore, but of forgiveness. Because in the end, love is what lasts. Kindness doesn't mean weakness. Some doors must close for justice to enter. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is peace.